So I think there are two main things. The first one is to embrace diversity. We know that there are various views among creators about training AI on their works, and so it's important to gather all these perspectives. The other aspect is to make sure that we can take advantage of the current copyright framework, but also look beyond copyright, because many solutions to the problems are not to be found in copyright.
So I think the foundation of ensuring positive outcomes for both parties is really increasing the trust between the various different stakeholders and increasing communication. The large language models need to train on the data in order to succeed, and we want to have innovation succeed, but we also need to be respectful of all the various different rights holders. And it's really a question of how do we create a foundation to foster the communication and find those middle grounds so we can find the win-win here.
A central point that emerged during today's discussion is the delicate balance that the Copyright Directive and the AI Act to some extent already reach between the interests at stake, rights holders on the one hand and AI developers on the other hand.
I think the biggest issue is the fact that there is a little bit of uncertainty. So with things like text and data mining exceptions, there isn't a great deal of certainty in terms of how you are meant to exclude your rights from text and data mining exceptions from a right holder perspective. Similarly though, from an AI developer perspective, there isn't a huge amount of certainty in terms of how do you know for sure that the data you're using hasn't been opted out from any exceptions.
The main challenges is that at the moment we have lack of clarity, and that is both for creators and for the industry, for the AI industry. So the problem for the creators is that they feel that their works are being taken without compensation. And from the part of the industry, they find that there is a lack of clarity in the regulations, that the regulations are either too broad or too narrow. They are missing out a lot of the nuance. So eventually I think that what is going to happen is that we're going to have to come into an agreement that those two views have to come to some other agreement. But really the main challenge is precisely that there is a lot of lack of clarity.
So I think in terms of the laws, copyright laws do vary tremendously from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Here in Europe, we have the Text and Data Mining Directive. I'm from the United States, where we have the Fair Use Doctrine. And I think it's going to be a while before we see harmonization on those fronts. So I think there's an opportunity here for international organizations to come together as they continue to look at the legal frameworks to foster more cooperation, harmonization. And I think some of the tools that they can use are how can we create codes of conduct around data scraping that would apply to different people within the ecosystem? How can we come up with standard contract terms that will make it more efficient and effective for rights holders to be able to negotiate with the parties that want to use their data? How can we create technical tools to have not only uniform opt-in, opt-out mechanisms, but conditional opt-in where you grant rights subject to certain terms and conditions, which ties in with the contract terms. And finally, creating education because rights holders need to know how they can protect their rights. And as the laws continue to evolve, the users of data need to know what the laws are around rights, data rights usage and collection.
Regulators across countries have to start talking to each other. So it is vital that the large players, particularly Japan, the United States, European Union, and the UK, other countries, start talking to each other. Eventually, I think that we're going to have some form of agreement.
Well, the AI Act is the regulatory framework on AI, but in terms of copyright, I think that it follows the logic of the entire act, that is to encourage providers of artificial intelligence to be transparent and to document and to be transparent about the way that they build their models and their systems. That transparency then helps enforce the copyright rules on one end, and it gives providers of AI models or systems the certainty that what they're doing is right and that it will be successful on the European market.
The AI Act complements existing EU copyright law, and particularly the EU Copyright Directive, specifically into transparency provisions relating to general purpose AI models. So there's a requirement on general purpose AI models to have a description of the type of copyright material that they're using in their training, and this transparency needs also to be in place in terms of these companies need to have policies in place, and these policies will need to state how they're complying with EU copyright law. So it's quite explicit in that sense.
So obviously the AI Act touches on a wide variety of topics, including copyright is one of the aspects. And the positive thing here is that it makes a very clear link to the EU acquis. So it makes a clear link to the existing framework in the DSM directive. And so this provides a lot of legal certainty and predictability.
We certainly tried that in the Artificial Intelligence Act. I think that again, the way that AI innovation is happening at breakneck speed, we'll have to readjust. We'll have to see how the framework works. We now have the framework. There's more certainty in the market, both for providers of AI and for copyright holders. So I think it is the right balance at this time, and in the future it will have to be adjusted in terms of implementation. But I think right now we're at a good point in time.
Despite diverging opinions, pretty much everyone today agreed that the right implementation of the Copyright Directive and the AI Act will be essential in the next years to come.
I was really impressed by the openness and the eagerness of all our participants from different sectors, from the institutions, from our experts, really to ask the hard questions of each other, to engage together with a lot of energy and enthusiasm and good humor, and to work towards finding the solutions and to also see where we need to meet again, keep talking to figure it out together.